Hello gamers and welcome back to another tactical FPS video with me, Crispy. Since the release of Fallujah on PlayStation, I've been finding myself spending a lot more time helping newer players get to grips with the game, which has been great, but it has meant that I've been neglecting some of my other favourites in the process. One game I've really been itching to get back into is 6 Days in Fallujah, particularly with the release of the single player campaign, which I think came out in November. I've always been a huge fan of single player campaigns and it really takes me back to my childhood, unwrapping the latest Medal of Honor game on PlayStation each Christmas and staying up till the early hours of the morning completely hooked on the experience. And I was hoping that 6 Days in Fallujah would fill that void of nostalgia that I've missed for so many years. So before diving in, I did notice that there was a patch update on Steam that had addressed some issues with squad AI bugs and other issues. So naturally you'd be thinking I had a smooth and enjoyable experience, right? Well, unfortunately I've got some bad news to share. Now of course I know that the game is still in early access, and this video was by no means an intention to start bagging the game out. My original plan was actually to make a multi-part video, diving into each mission, telling the story of Fallujah. However, after encountering bugs in the first mission, pushing through them in the second, and then just getting completely frustrated by the third, I realised that it would be better to shift gears, and instead of focusing on the campaign, I wanted to use this video to serve as a heads up for people that are considering purchasing the game, especially those that are buying it just for the campaign. If you're on the fence, then it might just be worth holding off until some of these issues are addressed. Before I get into the main issues, I do just want to highlight one of the cool features that the game offers. And one of my favourites is the interactive timeline that chronicles the events of Fallujah, from the lead up to the battle itself. And as you progress through the missions, more of the timeline is unlocked, which adds a nice layer of depth to the experience. On top of this, another standout feature is the documentary scenes, which feature real Marines that fought in the battle, sharing their personal experiences. And the way that these real life scenes transition seamlessly into the in-game action is a really nice touch and adds an authentic feel to the game. But that's about as far as I go with the positives. So let's move on to what's wrong with it. 6 Days is designed to put you in the shoes of a fire team leader where you can issue commands and direct your AI squad mates to perform actions like watching, moving, suppressing or stacking up. If you've played any of the Brothers in Arms games, this concept will feel familiar, and despite being a dated game, it still holds up impressively well today. For the most part, the command system in 6 Days works well, and the AI squad members respond effectively to orders like stacking up, suppressing or watching an area. However, one issue that I encountered was with the move command, which in my opinion feels a bit finicky and restrictive. I found that the range is limited, and rather than just pointing to a general area and issuing a command, I often found myself being met with invalid options. This was made even harder with the environment with collapsed buildings and rubble in the way, meaning that the AI couldn't access that area. From what I experienced, the move command only functions correctly in completely open and accessible areas for the AI, which forces you to expose yourself long periods of time to ensure that the AI moves to the right spot, leaving you vulnerable to enemy fire in the process. In my opinion, I think that the command system could be much smoother if instead of needing to pinpoint an exact location, you could issue a command to a general area. The AI could then intelligently navigate to the environment, automatically finding safe and accessible position within the proximity of the order just given. And I feel like this adjustment would end up just making the gameplay feel a little bit more fluid and reduce the need for players to put themselves at risk just to issue basic move commands. I personally ended up just abandoning the move command system in the end and having my squad just follow behind me, which I feel isn't the intended style of gameplay here. The second issue I encountered, which was addressed in the most recent patch, involved my squad mates blocking my line of sight or just generally getting in the way. On several occasions I was firing into a room when one of my squad mates would decide it'd be a good idea to stand up in front of me, resulting in friendly fire and negatively affecting my final score. On top of this, they would also just get in the way when I was generally trying to clear a room or look down a hallway. I understand that friendly fire is part of the game's realism, but it is a little bit frustrating when basic squad positioning isn't taken into account, and whilst I wouldn't claim to be a tactical genius, I sure as shit wouldn't be standing up if someone was firing over my head, and I can't imagine that any other reasonable person would decide to do this unless they had a death wish, of course. It just feels like a situation where the AI's behaviour doesn't align with common sense, which leads to unnecessary blue on blues. And in fairness, this didn't happen too often, but it was just frequent enough to be annoying, and it gave me the impression that my squad was just being more of a hindrance than a help. It just felt a little bit clunky, and as if the AI wasn't fully aware of its positioning in relation to my actions. So I do think that a bit more of an intelligent squad awareness could go a long way in improving just both the realism and the overall smoothness of the gameplay. Alright, I know it might just sound like I'm nitpicking at small issues here, but this next one is the real reason I had to put the game down and stop playing. The hit registration and time to kill are completely broken. I can't remember a time when it was this bad, especially compared to the earlier days of playing co-op missions with friends. I found myself unloading entire clips into AI enemies with zero effect, and in return, they'd manage to land shots on me and wound me. There were moments where a single tap on an enemy made sense, but just as often I'd be pouring clip after clip into an enemy with no impact. It was completely frustrating, and I gave it a pass during the first mission, thinking it might just be a bug with the tutorial, but no, the issue persisted and arguably got worse as I progressed. For me, this is something that the developers need to fix urgently. In its current state, I can't recommend playing the campaign. This issue alone makes the game nearly unplayable. The cherry on the top was this moment when I was wounded by an enemy AI on the rooftop, so retreated into the stairwell behind my squad mates to bandage up. Somehow the enemy teleported into the stairwell with me, past my squad and continued firing. It was like the AI defied the laws of spatial awareness, which just added to the frustration. I'm not somebody that minds slightly longer time to kill in games, so long as it's consistent, but this was just unbearable, and after the third mission I was done. I really do hope that the developers address this issue soon, because as it stands I won't be picking up the game until it's fixed. If I had bought this game solely for its campaign, I'd be incredibly disappointed. So if you are watching this before purchasing, my advice is to wait, save your money until these bugs are fixed. Unless of course you're a complete psychopath and your idea of fun is unloading entire mags into AI with no body armor. That said, the game does have a lot of potential, but in its current state it's just not there. I can't speak for the co-op mode as I haven't played it in a while, but maybe I'll chuck another video up to see if these issues persist. If you've experienced the same problems, then let me know in the comments. But as always, I hope that you found this video helpful. Thanks for watching, keep it crispy, and I'll see you next time.